Okay, let's dive into one of the biggest mysteries out there. Why are some countries incredibly wealthy while others struggle with poverty? It's a huge question, but the answer might just be hiding in something as simple as a piece of paper. And it all starts with a personal story from the economist Hernando de Soto. It's an experience he had that kind of unlocks a fundamental truth about how our modern world actually works. And it all went down at an airport customs line.
So there he is, standing at U.S. Customs, and he's trying to explain who he is. You know, the old-fashioned way, mentioning his family, his background. But the officer? Not interested. The officer didn't trust De Soto, the person. He trusted the passport, that formal, official, legal representation of him.
You know, this whole situation is a perfect example of a really cool idea from the philosopher Bertrand Russell. He talked about two kinds of knowing. There's knowledge by acquaintance, that's personal, face-to-face trust. It's great, but it doesn't scale. And then there's knowledge by description, trusting a standardized document. Our entire global economy, really, from credit cards to property deeds, it all runs on that second kind of trust.
Okay, so passports, trust, philosophy, what on earth does any of this have to do with global poverty? Well, as it turns out, pretty much everything. It's the key to unlocking a mind-boggling amount of hidden wealth all around the world.
So this leads to a really wild, provocative question at the heart of De Soto's work. What if the people we think of as poor are actually sitting on a mountain of assets? The problem isn't that they don't have things, it's that their things don't have passports. Just think about Cairo for a second. Decades ago, the government built these two-story housing projects. If you go there today, those buildings are now 6 stories tall. The people who lived there built the extra 4 floors themselves. These homes, these businesses, are very real, but legally, on paper, they just don't exist. They're in a total shadow world.
And the amount of value we're talking about here, it's absolutely staggering. In Egypt alone, the value of all these extra-legal, undocumented assets is estimated to be $245 billion.
To give you a sense of just how massive that number is, it's 55 times more than all the foreign investment Egypt has gotten since Napoleon invaded. It's this enormous pool of wealth, but it's completely disconnected from the formal economy.
De Soto came up with the perfect name for this: dead capital. Think of it like a radio without any batteries. The physical thing is there, sure, but you can't unlock its potential. Without a formal title, a house gives you shelter, but you can't use it to get a loan to start a business. All of its economic power is just locked away.
So, how do you flip the switch? How do you turn this dead capital into live, wealth-creating capital? Well, to get there, we actually have to get a little philosophical for a moment and ask a really basic question. What even is reality?
According to the philosopher John Searle, reality basically comes in 2 flavors. First, you've got the hard physical facts of the universe. You know, mountains, gravity, things that would be here whether humans existed or not. But then there's this other reality, a uniquely human one that's frankly even more powerful. It's made of things that exist only because we all agree they do. Money's just paper. A corporation is just a legal idea, but our collective belief in them gives them incredible power.
And this is what Searle calls a status function. It's a brilliant concept. It's just us as a group deciding that something has a new job, a new power, that it doesn't physically possess. A painted line on the road doesn't physically stop a car, but we all agree it's a barrier, and that agreement is how we build our entire social world.
So, okay, that's the philosophy. But how does this idea of shared agreement actually build capital in the real world? Well, history gives us some amazing examples of how creating a formal, shared reality can completely change a country's future. I mean, look at Japan right after World War II. Its economy was a wreck, poorer per person than Peru at the time. But then, as part of a massive reform, they completely tore up the old feudal land system. They created a modern property system, giving formal, legal titles to the farmers who were actually working the land. That single change unlocked a tidal wave of national wealth and helped kickstart the Japanese economic miracle.
But here's the catch. You can't just fake this. You can't just copy and paste laws from a successful country and expect the same results. Take Peru in the 1960s. They were worried about how many people were dying in traffic accidents. So they did something kind of crazy. They took the traffic laws from Zurich, Switzerland, word for word, translated them, and made them the law of the land.
So the laws on the books were identical, but the results weren't even close. Why? What gives? Because laws are just words on a page unless they actually connect with the social contracts and the norms that people already live by on the ground.
So, if the answer isn't just writing down better laws, what is it? How do you actually build that shared system of belief that makes everything work? How do you bring capital to life?
Well, this is where DeSoto's team came up with a really clever method. Instead of coming in from the top down and telling people what to do, they start from the ground up. They go out and they listen. They document the informal rules, the social contracts that people are already using to manage their property. And then they work to bring those grassroots rules into one single, formal, and easy-to-use legal system.
And that right there, that gets us to the very core of this mystery. The true source of capital isn't the physical house or the field itself. It's the shared belief in the system that represents that house, that represents that field. It's a system that makes its value visible and trustworthy to everyone.
When you boil it all down, a property title basically does for an asset what a passport does for a person. It pulls out its economic potential and gives it a universal identity. It lets that house or that business travel in the wider market, securing loans, attracting investment, and creating new wealth far beyond its own little neighborhood.
And all of this leaves us with a pretty big question to chew on. If so much of our global prosperity is built on this invisible architecture of trust, on these shared beliefs literally written on paper, what does it take to keep that system strong? And, maybe more importantly, what happens when we start to lose faith in it?